Okay, thank you everyone for showing up to the front-end web developer info session. I appreciate you taking the time out to spend about an hour and a half with us, or maybe an hour or so, depending on the questions we get, to talk about and learn about our program. Before we get started, we just want to acknowledge, as well, at least I am on the BCIT campus, the downtown campus here, and which is located on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish, which includes the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish Nations. Today's presenters is going to be, so there's Jonathan Leathers, who's our faculty. There's Bal, who's the program coordinator, who you might have already spoke to if you have applied or thinking about applying, and myself, who's the program head for the program. We'll talk about the job market in general as far as web development is concerned. And of course, then we'll talk about our program overview, all about the courses, all about the people that work in our program, our faculty, our staff, and whatnot. And then at the end, we'll talk about admissions, and we'll have a chance for Q&A. So throughout the presentation, we'll save questions till the end. So you can ask questions in the chat, but we'll try to answer them at the end. At least I will try to do it audibly so that people who are watching this recording later can hear the questions you've asked. So I'll reread the questions and then we'll answer them all at the end. So if you have any questions, generally save them towards the end and then plop them in. We'll definitely get to every single question. We won't stop the meeting until all the questions are answered. So write them down if you have some questions and put them in the chat at the end there, and we'll answer them while we're here. Okay. Let's move forward here. Okay, so let's see. We've been around for quite a long time. So we've been around. So that's sort of when I say us, the FWD front end web developer program under various different names for about 14, maybe if you count the original one, 15 years of grads. So we have about 15 years of graduates out there in the workforce. And most of our grads are happy with the education they received in our program here. Because we have grads from so many years, probably if I did the math, we do 3 intakes a year, almost 90 students a year times 15 years. So, around 1,000 or so, roughly, a bit more. They're sprinkled throughout the Lower Mainland. They're working all over. So we have places in some of these companies you might recognize, some of them you will not. But the ones you don't recognize are just industry names that are sort of development houses that build websites for other companies. But you might recognize names like ICBC, Expedia, some of the ones you might recognize. You might recognize Salesforce. Automatic you might see up there. That's the company that runs WordPress on there. But we have people that work in the Lower Mainland, mainly in the Lower Mainland, but all over. Students have spread out over the years and gotten over through United States and out east in Toronto, whatnot, and all over the place. So lots of grads floating out there that you can maybe turn to if you do enter the workforce. You might see them floating around. In the development space, which is quite wide and broad, we're part of the sort of web development space. We're in the front end, and even further focused from the web development space, we are in the front end web developer space. And that just means we deal with the code that runs in the browser. So every time you go to a website and you see stuff being generated in the browser, like your image, your text, and all that stuff, we write the code that makes that happen. So that's called the front end of the code. So that's where we're front end developers. We do with a little bit on the back end because we have to get data from the back end. So we have to talk to servers, but most of our code will be running on the front end, which is the code you'll see in the browser. Now these salary levels here, don't get too excited, but these are after 5-10 years in industry. But they do, you can easily get up to these 6 figures if you stick around for several years. If you're coming in cold, like say you're coming from a completely different career, and we've had students from all sorts of careers, everything from carpenters to the trades to marketing professionals to airline pilots but then also graphic designers, photographers, the whole 9 yards. We have people of all kinds of various backgrounds. But if you're coming from some industry that's unrelated, you have no prior experience, you're not going to jump right in and get these salaries right away. It does take about 3 to 5 years to get up into the higher salary ranges there. All this stuff you can see this is, you can check this out for yourself. You can go to the Robert Half Technology Salary Guide. I'll just switch to it right now real quick to show you And I may just throw the URL in the chat here. Let me just show you here. I'll plop this in the chat if you want to take a look on that one. There. Let me just jump to it real quickly and give you a second to share it. Stop sharing the screen. I'll just share the website here. Window. I'm going to share the Safari right there. Okay. So, and then my thing disappears. Put you back up. So this is the website here. So you can just go down and down here. You can put in your job title. Lots of there's the thing about web development. There's all kinds of job titles you could do, like web developer, front-end developer, back-end developer. For now, I'm just going to put in web developer. Then you can even do more specific. You do senior web developer, junior developer, full stack developer, all 9 yards. Anyways, pick a few jobs, check them out, right? I'll just put in web developer and then Vancouver. This is bad UI because you have to, it says this, but you have to actually grab a drop down. Otherwise, it gives you an error. But anyways, so type in your city and then you can search your salaries and then it will just pop up and give you a salary range and then various percentiles and whatnot and related positions and stuff like that. See, there's another term, technical front-end developer. That's interesting. I've never heard that one. That's a new one. But there you go. So yeah, it's a really good little website. And you can put that for any kind of career, mainly tech careers, I think. But it's good for that. So let me switch back 1 sec, guys, here. And I'll switch back to let's go back. Boom. Yeah, switching between screens is not the easiest in this app, but we're making do here.
Dario is asking if the salaries are in Canadian.
Yeah, those are Canadian dollars because it's a Canadian web. Yeah, so it's in B. That's you're searching for BC jobs. So those are Canadian salaries. I'm almost 99% certain. Yeah, those look like Canadian salaries to me. Okay. Graduate outcomes. Oh, maybe I should have stayed in the Safari browser, but yeah. And as for graduate outcomes, they have this website, BCIT, or not BCIT, but all of BC has this website where you can check outcomes for various BC public secondary school programs. You can go check them out. If you go to this website here, it's a little tricky to navigate a little bit, but if you do go to this website, you can actually, no, that's going to give us to the that's going to give us to a PDF, which is fine. That will give us to a 2023 outcome. But if you want like latest and greatest, whatever's there, you whoops, I popped that in there. That's weird. It gives me like a, hold on. That gives me a weird, doesn't give me text. 1 second here. Let's go paste this in as plain text. 1 sec. Paste that in. There we go. That's going to give you a PDF, but if you want to go to a website that you can check out all outcomes, I'll show you that right now. I'm just going to give you 1 sec here. I'll pop this in. If you go to this one here, it's got a weird URL. It's like BC Stats and then shinyapps.io. It's weird. If you pop this in, doesn't just do, the second URL doesn't just do our program, but it does all sorts of post-secondary programs. I'll pop this up on the screen here. Let me just pop this over and I'll just pop it over to Safari here. This one here. So if you do go to this website, it won't be grayed out like this. Let me just reload it because I've been off it for a while. So there we go. To find our program, we are certificate. We are at BCIT. And then the tricky part, I guess, is program area. We are considered to be in engineering and applied sciences because web development can be in various categories. You can sometimes find it in like this, engineering, applied sciences, and in other provinces, districts, areas might categories under media or something like that. So we're under engineering and applied sciences, and then program name would be our front end web developer program, which should be in here somewhere. There it is. There she is. And you can click that and you click save the PDF and you'll get the latest version. I think probably it's 2023. They do surveys every couple of years, so it might be 2023, might be the latest on there. But every couple of years they do it. And you can do it not just for our program, but all of them in there. So that's a good little resource I thought I'd share with you. I'll pop that in. I'll share the PowerPoint again, which is here. There we go. Go back to chat so I can see what's going on. So why BCIT? Why FWD? So you have lots of choices out there. So BCIT, if I'll give our sales pitch for our institute, we are the leading post-secondary institute in BC. If I'm not sure where everyone is logging in from, but we have had students all over the country and even international come over. So in the province of BC, we're considered the leading post-secondary technology institute. So we're the largest technology institute in the province, largest sort of college level institute in the province. So that leads to employers sort of seeking and asking for BCIT grads. It also means there are a lot of BCIT grads out there in BC. So that means perhaps you apply to a job at XYZ company and it's an IT job, and there might be a good chance that that person who's hiring or doing the hiring, or at least a senior developer or something, is also a BCIT grad. They may say, oh, they're a BCIT grad. Oh, and it may even be one of our grads, right? Because we've been out there for 14 years and they may be in the hiring position. So it's always good to work for a school that's well recognized and has lots of grads that are out there that also go to the same school, because there's a little bit of camaraderie there, a little bit of an in there. BCIT is a large institute with large budgets. So we have good technology infrastructure. So if, depending on which intake you take, even if you take, we have various types of intakes, but if you take the in-class one, all our campuses have great Wi-Fi, good classrooms and study areas and public spaces that you can utilize, and lots of services for students and counseling services and career services and whatnot. So good IT, good all around student services, and there are lots of events and stuff like that, which is great. We are a public institute, not a private institute. So BCIT will be here, as long as the province of BC is here, BCIT will more than likely be here. Our school in general is publicly funded. So generally our priority is the quality of education, and it is not sort of generating a profit or revenue from you. So that's our top priority there, education and care. For our program, so for more specific to our program, so there's BCIT. Maybe why would you want to take a program at BCIT? For the front-end web developer program, which we call FWD for short, again, we have lots of grads working in industry, so that's a plus. You may run into them. You may see them at industry events and whatnot. We have a very experienced faculty and staff. So we have 3 full-time faculty in here, all of which have been here for several years. I'll show you another slide for that one. We have had staff that's been with BCIT for many years as well. It's a short duration program, so it's 27 weeks, around 6 months. So you can get in, get out, learn the foundational skills you need, learn the skills you need to become a junior front-end web developer upon graduation. So if you don't have 2 or 3 years to spend in a traditional long duration diploma program, this might be a good fit for you. If you've already have a previous degree, or if you're coming from another career and you just don't want to spend 2 or 3, 4 years in a post-secondary institute again, then this might be a good program for you. It is entry level to intermediate. That just means that if you're coming from, you have no prior web development experience, or you're coming from a different industry, that you can succeed in this program. The main requirement really is that you think you have an interest in working on computers and building and creating websites. If that piques your interest a little bit, then you're probably good to go. And as long as, I think most people, or especially if you're here and you're interested in applying to the program, probably can turn on a computer and save a file and whatnot, and that kind of stuff. So those sort of basic computing skills is all you really need to start taking our program. And that's what's great about front-end web development, is it's a generally lower bar to learn to the learning entry. So you can learn the languages relatively simply, and then sort of ramp up throughout the program to get to more advanced levels of programming as the program progresses. But it's very accessible to people coming from other careers. Even in industry, in the professional space, if you talk to front-end developers or even web developers, you'll find there'll be some that took the traditional computer science background and ended up in web development, but there's lots of them that come from other areas, graphic design and marketing, trades, whatever, and just sort of wound up in web development because they thought it would be an interesting career to do, and that's what they do. So if you talk to people in the industry, you'll see people from a variety of backgrounds, and that's true of our students as well. It is a full BCIT certificate program, so full credit program. So at the end, you'll graduate, you'll get a certificate. You can go to convocation if you want to. BCIT has every year in June, I believe, the end of June. They do it once a year. So even no matter when you graduate, you can attend to the next one, whenever that is. It's cohort learning throughout the program. So that just means that it's a synchronous program regardless of the delivery model. I'll talk about delivery models in a little bit. So that means you're with the same group of students Monday to Friday in the same sort of classroom. So you're always with that same core group of anywhere from 20 to probably 30 students, depending on the delivery model in there. So you're not taking one class with one group of students on Monday and another class with another group of students on a Wednesday kind of thing. It's always the same group of students, and that's good because you sort of you become close to each other and you create your own little network there. So when you graduate, you already have an instant network of 20 or 30 people that you can pull on and talk to and whatnot. We do offer a variety of learning delivery models. So this is post COVID when people started working more and more from home. We've sort of transitioned our program to reflect that a little bit. So we still offer the traditional in-person programs. That means, you go to campus, you go to a classroom and you sit in the classroom and the teacher teaches and you work together and all that stuff in person, just like the good old days. That's all there. That's still there. That's one version. You can take an online version, which just means like you're doing here. You're attending a virtual meeting. Here we're using Microsoft Teams, whatever the technology is, lecture, broadcaster, their lecture through one of these programs, and then you listen and do the lessons that way. Or we have what we call blended, which is going to be a new one we're starting in 2025, which just means it's almost like if you ever work anywhere now that offers an opportunity to work from home, either fully or part-time. So in that blended option, you have the option to come to campus where the instructor will be delivering the lecture from a traditional classroom. So you can come and sit down if you want to, or the instructor will be broadcasting in real time at the same time over the internet, and you can just stay home and watch the lecture from home. So it's sort of blended that way, and you can choose either or. So you could say come to school Monday, Tuesday, and then you could work from home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That would be up to you, or come in once a week, or come in once a month, or come in all the time. Totally up to you. So that's a sort of more flexible model if you're not sure which one you want to do. We'll talk about when those are offered, because they are offered at different times of year, but we offer those 3 delivery models, which is great. So depending on how you like to learn, you can pick one of those 3. And also to also point out that you all learn the same thing no matter what delivery model you take. So if you take online or in person, it doesn't matter. You learn the same thing, and the lectures are generally the same. Obviously, there's some differences in how you interact with people, but beyond that, but the learning outcomes are exactly the same. And you get the same certificate and everything's the same that way. So we do try to keep the program updated. If you check out our course outlines officially on the BCIT website, you'll notice they may seem a little bit general. That just allows us to technically modify them, do minor changes without affecting having to do official changes. So it allows us to update the program and individual courses. Relatively easy to tweak them a little bit to keep them up to date with industry trends and whatnot. So we can if we have a new technology that comes in, we can sort of insert it into an existing, we have a course called web scripting 1. So if some new web scripting technology pops in, we can insert that in there if that happens. So we do try to tweak it and update it frequently. And then every few years we do major changes and major updates, but even between those few year big changes, we do small incremental changes in there. It's all sort of hands-on best practices, practical learning, practical assignments, practical projects, group work. We don't do exams. We don't do, that kind of stuff, which is fine for other programs. But for this one, we find it's best to sort of have you build things instead of sort of test you on individual little code snippets and challenges. We said we do have you build websites, work in teams and work on projects and that kind of stuff. That's how you're going to be generally evaluated. There'll be a few quizzes here and there, but they're not going to be a major part of your assessment. It's mainly going to be the projects you produce and whatnot. It's also a good balance. So some of our competitors are sort of coding boot camps, 3-4 month programs and whatnot. And those are fine. Those are great. Check those out. See what fits best for you. But we feel here at FWD that we sort of offer a good balance. Yes, we do a lot of coding, so it's a lot of development, so a lot of writing code and whatnot. That's a core part of the program. But we also do the other sides of web development, which I think are almost equally as important. That's sort of the UX, UI design side of the business. So the UX and UI, that stands for user experience and user interface. That deals with sort of the theory and the understanding of how we design websites. Why do we do certain layouts? Why do we use certain colors? And then also in the area of sort of information. So how do we organize information? How do we sort that information? How do we sort of categorize it on the website? Which kind of sort of information hierarchy structure do we use? That kind of stuff. And then how do we, design our websites in a way that is determined by our users and our stakeholders, and how do we balance that all out? So stakeholders have needs and users have needs, and that's all UX UI design parts. And it's good to know that kind of stuff, that side of the business, because it's a lot of times when you in industry, you're dealing with stakeholder meetings. You might be dealing with people that are not necessarily developers, but they are marketing people, or they're business owners or whatever, and they have certain needs, and you need to understand how maybe if you have to push back on those needs a little bit, why you would have to, like maybe they want a purple and green website that's at a certain group that may not be a good color source or whatever. So that's a good way to be able to talk about that intelligently. And then business practices are sort of the business side of the web development space. So a little bit on sort of project management, time management, that kind of stuff, and then budgeting, and we also have an e-commerce website, e-commerce course as well. So dealing with selling things on the web and whatnot. So everything at its core is web related. There are obviously some of these things can be taken more general concept, like general design practices and general business practice, but everything's in the program is focused on how it relates to web development in general. So it's a nice balance between code, design, and sort of general business practices in there. So it gives you a good, well-rounded education. Challenging and practical labs. So we have an instructor there every single day. Depending on intake size, there may even be a lab assistant there every week. And we may sometimes, depending on intake size, we'll offer evening help sessions where you can come in and get extra help that way. BCIT also offers tutoring as well, student tutoring as well. But everything's sort of supervised labs, practical assignments, practical projects, and whatnot. We do a lot of collaborative work just because in the real world in web development, you rarely do work by yourself. You're often having some kind of collaboration with multiple people to build a larger scale website. And of course, as we said, like you have access to the BCIT campuses, their IT infrastructure, and all the career services, student services that are available to you, regardless of the intake model you take, regardless if you're an online student, blended student, in-person student, you get the same rights, responsibilities, and access to BCIT services, campuses, and everything, even if you are an online student there. A little bit on our faculty. So we'll talk. So Beata is not here tonight, but Beata's been with us for 13 years. She's a graduate of she's a graduate of PIDP, which is just the BCI, the BC Provincial Instructor Diploma Program, which is a program in BC that sort of it's not really certifies instructors, but it's sort of a baseline program that a lot of instructors have to, at least at BCIT, have to take, that gives you sort of grounding on how to, instruct adults generally. So it's a good little certification to get, or a good little diploma to get. So all our full-time faculty have this diploma here. We have Jonathan, who's going to talk a little bit about his programs. He teaches mainly in the second half of the program, the sort of the advanced level programs towards the end of the program. He's going to talk a bit about those in a little bit. So he's here too. He's been with us since 2018, 6 years of teaching experience there. There's myself, who's been here 14 years, program head. I've taught all the courses, also PIDP grad in there. And then we have our faculty, part-time faculty, who all come. So we have the full-time people who are we're at BCIT all the time. So we're sort of in our faculty teaching education space a lot. So we also bring in part-time faculty who work with us part-time, but they still have a foot in the door in industry. So that gives us an area to, we can ask these instructors, like, hey, what's happening in the real world as we are removed from it a little bit. We try to keep in touch with the real world a little bit. I know Jonathan's works a lot with the WordPress group here in Vancouver. But these part-time faculties actually work in industry, so that gives us a little way to keep us in tune with what's going on in industry there. So we have several part-time faculty. Some of them who've been teaching for a very long time, so they have lots of experience with teaching and web development in general, and design and whatnot. Since Gen AI came out, ChatGPT and other generative AIs and large language learning models and stuff, that's been a game changer in a lot of areas, not just in software development or web development, but in, everything from office stuff and marketing and for good or for bad. Some people to debate the ethics of it and whatnot, but we're not ignorant of it. We don't ban it. We don't ignore it. We know it's there. It's more become a tool to enhance development, not replace development. And you'll discover that quickly if you take the program, that you can't just tell an AI, hey, build me an app, and it will build an app that's you'd ever want to share with anybody, and have it secure and have workable code and whatnot. But it's definitely, but that doesn't say it's not a good tool. It's definitely a great tool to speed up your ability to write code and whatnot. So we'll throughout the program we'll talk about the ethics of AI, like how do you check for bias, and how do you check for the reliability of what it's telling you on the outputs. We'll talk about prompting, how to give prompts. We'll look at it an aspect to how to enhance your learning. So how does it, how can you use it as a virtual tutor? How can you look at the outputs that AIs are generating and question it and see if it's doing the right thing or not? And then also in the angle of development, how do we leverage AI to write code efficiently? How do we use it to help our code? How do we use it maybe to analyze our code, or how do we use it to, how do we analyze the code it generates as well? So how do we look at the code that it generates? Because it doesn't always output perfect code, so we have to understand what we're looking at when we look at AI generated code in there. So it's definitely part of the program. We've interweaved it throughout. A lot of the instructors in the tech courses have it intertwined throughout their courses and stuff, so you will be exposed to that. And it is generally permitted. We'll talk about when to use it, when not to use it. We'll talk about how to sort of when you're starting out, maybe you should use it in one way, and then when you get to the more advanced levels and later in the program, you can use it another way. We'll talk about all that if you decide to take our program in there. So all in all, our main objective of this program is that by the time you graduate, you have the skills required to become a front-end web developer. So after those 27 weeks, you should have the skills necessary to start applying for those front-end web developer jobs there. Okay, so from here, I'm just going to talk about, so that's sort of the general program, sort of why you might choose us. Here's sort of the programs you would be taking. We have 13 courses in 3 main categories. These are sort of categories that I've sort of created myself, but we have sort of coding courses, which is all the languages you're going to learn. We have some design courses, and then we have some business courses, all geared towards web development. So the design and business courses are all slanted towards web development. I'll go through these briefly, and then if you do want a copy of these slides, I do have that have more detailed information about these courses here. But I'll just go through these roughly. But you can always check out the course outlines on the BCIT website, or you can send Bal or myself an email, and we can send you detailed information if you want about any of these courses in particular. So it is an entry-level program, which means we come in from the ground level. So that means if you have no experience, we'll teach you everything you need to know from the ground up, basically. So these 1,000 coding courses here start at the 1,000 level, like Web Development 1, Web Scripting 1, Web Development, well, I guess Web Development 1, Web Scripting 1. This Web Development 1 is sort of our introduction to the web. So this sort of all things like, how do you host a website? What is a domain? And then we also talk about things like version control. How do we, using things like Git and GitHub, how do we manage our code bases and whatnot? To then, of course, introducing us to the foundational languages of the web, HTML and CSS and all that stuff. So sort of a roundabout introductory. I'll also talk about SEO and SEO, and there's something else, accessibility. So sort of a roundabout introduction to web development, sort of a catch-all introduction to all things web development. So that's our Web Development 1 course. Our Web Scripting 1 course and our Web Scripting 3 and Web Scripting 2, those are our scripting language courses. Scripting 1 and Scripting 3 are JavaScript focused. Scripting 1 is our introduction to JavaScript. That is, foundational programming stuff, foundational JavaScript stuff. JavaScript is the behavior language of the web. So it's the native programming or scripting language that runs in the browser. It also runs in other places, but we're going to look at it for the context of JavaScript that runs in the browser in there. So that's introduction to that. And then Web Scripting 3, I'll talk about 2 in a second. 3 is our introduction to more advanced JavaScript, so and also libraries. So we're going to use our frameworks. So we're going to talk about for now, we're going to talk about the React framework and how to use React to build more web applications versus websites, and sort of how to get data from some kind of remote server and take that data and create dynamic user interfaces from the data we collect from the cloud there. So that's sort of Web Scripting 3 using React. And then Web Scripting 2, we learned PHP in there. That's our server-side language. That will teach us how to talk to a server, how to access databases, how to run queries, that kind of stuff. And we learn PHP because it's not the hot kid in the block, but it's the old standby. It's still probably it doesn't get a lot of glory, but it's probably the most popular or most used language on the web as far as like the back end of the web it goes anyways. It doesn't get all the attention that some of the flashy newer languages do, but it's powering a large chunk of the web out there. So it's still the most popular, and that's why we teach it. It also powers our content management systems, which we'll run later in the course. Maybe I'll just have Jonathan jump in about the CMS course there. Do you want to say something, Jonathan, about that?
Yeah, sure. So the content management systems course basically takes the stuff that you've learned in those previous courses and then some of the design stuff that Mike will talk about in a minute and translates that into, okay, how do we build things for businesses and people in the real world who are going to actually manage the content themselves. So they're going to be the ones who add the text and edit the text and the images. And how do they do that, even though they don't know how to write code like you do? So you build things in a way that they can make changes to it. And then you've built sort of the front end and the back end of the site so that as they make changes to it, it still keeps the design and everything that you've created for them. So that's kind of how the content management systems ties into those other courses.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. All right. I'll bring Jonathan back in because he's going to talk about the capstone and whatnot, but I'll come back to you there in a sec. And then we have our design courses, UX and web design course. We have fundamentals, which is sort of the introduction to design in general, but of course, always focused on sort of web design, but general design concepts, color theory, font theory, color combinations, general layout stuff, and also introducing to some of the design tools. We do use the Adobe Suite here just because it's an industry standard. You don't have to buy it. It's included in your tuition. So the Adobe Creative Cloud's included in your tuition because I know it's expensive. So it's included. We also use not just the Adobe Suite, we also use more modern UX prototyping tools like Figma and Adobe XD and whatnot. Those are also taught as well. And then UX fundamentals, as I was explaining, that's more of sort of the theoretical side, and understanding user needs and understanding who your users are and how that relates and how that affects what the design is going to be, and how we organize and lay out our website and how that affects the usability of our website. So that's sort of UX class, UX fundamentals. And then our web design process is sort of how do we take the user needs, the user needs, their stakeholder needs, and then create and maybe take some UX theory stuff in there, and how do we create a sort of a design from that? What's that process? So how do we go from grabbing the user needs, client needs, creating a stickman drawing, maybe to a sort of mixed fidelity design, and then to maybe a full interactive design, and then delivering that to the developers? What does that process look like, and how does that work? And that's what that web design process course is. And then for these last ones, maybe I'll have Jonathan loop in for these last four here, because you probably know more about these ones. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Managing Web Projects course is a short course, and it's basically teach you the project management tools that get used commonly in the web. This is where you learn things like Agile and Waterfall and terms like this. So basically how when you're working on a team and with clients and stakeholders, do you actually manage the project and make sure everything gets done on time, which will tie into the capstone project. And then before that, the online stores course Michael mentioned is our e-commerce course. So it's kind of an offshoot or carrying on from what you learned from the content management systems course, and then specifically focused on, okay, now we know how to build these sites for clients. What if it's a store that's selling stuff online? What are the other factors to think about there? We talk about two popular systems you may have heard of, which is Shopify and WooCommerce. So you'll learn how to build both sites or sites that built with Shopify or WooCommerce. The web portfolio project is and the capstone project are your final two projects in the program. The web portfolio is exactly what it sounds. You're building a portfolio of your projects. So you get to build the web portfolio with whatever system you want. And you have some guidance from your instructor, who is Beata, who's one of our other full-time faculty. And she'll kind of help you based on what kind of jobs you're ultimately looking for, how to build your portfolio and design it, and to sort of market yourself to who you're looking to get hired from. And then the final project is a capstone project. And that's where you take everything you learned throughout the entire program, bring it all together, your design skills, your project management skills, your coding skills, and with a team of your classmates, basically build a final project how we would do it in the real world. So imagine we have a fake client and you will build out the site with their needs in mind, and you'll work with myself and Beata or whoever's the instructor at the time for the capstone project and go through the whole process, and you end up with a really nice portfolio piece at the end that's sort of mimicking what you would do in the real world. In a very short amount of time, you'll be surprised about what you've learned through the whole program. So that's kind of the tail end of the course, those last 4 right there. Or the
Thanks,
program, I
Jonathan.
should
That's
say.
awesome. Thank you. So these next slides I'm going to skip over because they just sort of talk about what we just talked about in point form. If you do want a copy of these slides, just send Bal an email and I'll get it to him and he can send it to you. In there, I will put in the last slide here, which just gives you a rough pie chart of like where you're going to spend your time. So roughly, approximately, half of it on coding stuff, all these languages in here, alphabet soup of languages you're going to learn, and then 25%, roughly 20% on UX, UI, prototyping, graphic design tools, that kind of stuff, and then 25, 30% on business and project management skills, that kind of stuff in there. So that's sort of where you're going to spend your time in the coursework there. Okay, admissions and entry requirements. Okay, so how do you get into this program? So there we go. Let's check this out. So if you're interested in taking it. So we have an application fee. So when you go to the FWD website, there's a little button there you can click on that will take you to the general, I think it's BC, I forget what the website's called, but it's a general sort of portal. You can apply to any program in BC in there. So it's a $90, $150 application fee when you apply. And then there's this English language requirement, which requires you to have at least English 12 or English first persons, or 3 credits from a post-secondary English humanities or social sciences course from a recognized institution, and there's multiple others. And I'm definitely not the expert on English language qualifications, but Bal is more of an expert than I am. So if you do have some questions, throw them in there. If I have XYZ certificate, do I qualify? That kind of stuff. Bal's the expert at that. But if definitely if that question, you can put it into the chat and we'll answer it for you for sure. But there's multiple ways to make that English language requirement if you're not a native English speaker or come from a native English speaking country. And then once you apply online, complete. So you can just, if everything that's asked for, you can just scan it, like, turn it into a PDF. That is fine. We don't need official copies. There's the fees, credit card for that. And then there are some changes in regards to holding your seat. So for domestic tuition, this is approximate numbers, plus or minus $100 there. It changes every year. So it's around 8,000 for domestic and around 9,700 for international. So this is the important part here. If you are interested and you do want to reserve a seat, if you're domestic, the hold fee to hold your seat is $1,500. That's included in the 8,000. So you pay the 1,500 holds, and so your balance due would be 7,500. Now the international, unfortunately, we don't determine this. Is determined by the institute. They require a $6,000 reserve fee. So if you're international, that's required to hold your seat in there. And then once you hold your seat, then the balance is due, I think, 2 weeks before the program starts in there. And that commitment fee is non-refundable, so just be aware of that in there. So the tuition includes like I said, the Adobe CC subscription. You'll get that for, depending on which intake you take, but for anywhere from 9 months to a year approximately. The O'Reilly online learning library, that's sort of a collection of ebooks that if you've ever seen programming books with the little animals on front, that's a whole library. You get access to the whole library of those, which is pretty good. Office 365. Now we don't use that officially in the program, but if you do want to, make a presentation, which you'll have to do a few times in the program, you have to make a presentation. You don't have to use PowerPoint, but you do have access to Microsoft tools if you want to use them for, making Excel spreadsheets for project management or whatever. You have access to that, and then the usual sort of student association health and dental plan, which is. If you ever have an employee, if you ever worked full time in Canada here, you have this employee benefit, like health benefit. That would be extended health, I guess they call it. That would be similar to that there. And then the UPass, which is standard for all post-secondary institutes in BC, that's part of your tuition as well. But you kind of get a discounted rate, and then that gives you access to all 3 zones here in the Lower Mainland of TransLink. There's not a lot of additional expenses, so we don't have textbooks in this program, so you don't have to budget like $800 for textbooks. We just found that they got out of date too quickly. The web changes too fast, and plus it's the web, so a lot of these resources are available on the web. So heck, we probably just didn't see the use or the benefit of textbooks. So a lot of us instructors have been doing it for a long time. We have our own material, so we found we didn't need it. So all you really need to extra expenses for this course. Of course, obviously you'll need a computer. I'll talk about that in a second. But beyond that, you'll need to buy a domain, and we'll teach you. A domain is just like, BCIT.ca, the BCIT.ca part. That's the domain there, and it's not very expensive. We'll teach you where to buy that, how to buy it, how to hook it up to your web server. We'll teach you all that. But that does cost a bit of money, anywhere from $5 to $30. You get like a sort of 1 year rental of that. When you buy a domain, you get like a 1 year rental of that. It's like $5 or $30 a year, depending on the domain. And then some web hosting as well. So there's various options there. We currently have a little bit of a deal for 3 months to get some free ones, but that could end at any time. So generally budget around $70 to $140 in the program for basic web hosting, and we have certain requirements for that. So sometimes I know there's some free options with some of these app hosting companies and stuff like that, but we have certain requirements for databases and languages that need to be supported. So those don't often work. So sometimes you have to purchase basic web hosting so our applications work on that. That's budget about $70 to $140 for the duration of the program, 6 months. And again, you can turn that off when you graduate. You can just stop it and just cancel all your subscriptions, and there you go. What else do we have there? Oh yeah, of course, regardless of what sort of delivery model you're taking, you have to get a computer. Even if you're taking in person, it is we call it BYOD, which means bring your own device. So you will need, if you're obviously in person, obviously, I mean, I guess you could log in your desktop computer. No one's tried that yet, but usually if you're taking in person, you're going to do the laptop way. Right, so you're going to need to buy a laptop. Obviously, if you're here, you have some kind of computing device, but it could be an iPad you're on or a phone. But for our course, you do need a proper desktop or laptop computer device. It can be a Mac, it can be a PC. It doesn't matter. Some of our instructors use Macs, some of our instructors use PCs, some of them use both. So we're all platform agnostic. So either platform is fine. A good, decent computer is good. So do invest a good amount of money in a good quality device, because you are going to use it day in and day out, 5 days, 6 days a week, 6 to 8 hours, 10 hours a day, depending how crazy hard you work. So you want to sort of a durable, reliable, relatively performant device. And it doesn't have to be the greatest bleeding edge thing, but something that's going to be workable and usable and has a good amount of RAM. Get as much RAM as you can afford. That's the key, is as much RAM as you can get, because we have lots of tabs and programs open and stuff like that in there. And if you are taking it remotely, either blended or well, I guess blended. If you want to come into the classrooms, then you do want to have a laptop. But if you're taking the online one, a lot of students like they use their gaming rig at home, their desktop machine, and that's fine for that. So totally fine. Usually gaming laptops or gaming computers are really good for web development. They're usually very powerful and stuff like that. So you have a gaming rig, you're good to go. Yeah, that's Windows, Mac is fine. So that's the main expense, is a modern computing device of some sort, and then a little bit for a web hosting, a little bit for a domain. Other than that, everything's included in your tuition in there. So as I was saying before, we do offer 3 intakes per year, and whatever intake you sign up for will determine the delivery model. Okay, so currently right now we have our fall intakes running. So going forward in 2025, that's going to be our that's going to be our blended delivery. So that's going to be the delivery that's going to be, if you want to have the option on Monday or Tuesday to go into the class and work from home on Wednesday and then come in on Thursday, then that's the model for you. Is the September intake, because that runs from September to April each year. The one that's open right now for applications, the one that's currently, if you go to the website and apply to the program, that's the one you can apply for, is the January intake. So that starts this year. It starts January, I want to say 7th or something like that, or something. The first weekend, the first Monday after the New Year's holiday there, I think, is when that one begins there, and that runs from January to July. So those applications for that is open now, so you could apply right now and get in right now, and you'd have reserve a seat to start right now. Oh, my night mode just kicked in. If you're wondering why my screen went all black, so my night mode kicked in. That one, so the January intake is fully online. So that means you have access to the campus and whatnot, but the courses are delivered virtually over the web through a video conferencing application. The platforms we use vary depending on the technology of the time, but it will be a reliable video conferencing application that you'll use. And that will be free to you. You don't have to buy anything for that. So those applications are open right now. But even if you do take the online one, you do have access to the campus. I mean, sometimes students will just come to campus to work, even if they're in the online model, because especially the downtown campus can be a pleasant place to study and stuff. And then our May intake, which is our one that runs in May over the summer and then into November. It's also going on right now. It's in person. So it's at the campus here. Our campus is the downtown campus in Vancouver. So we're located downtown Vancouver at the corner of Seymour and Dunsmuir. Those applications will open in January. Generally, after the January intake starts, we'll open the applications for the May intake, and that's going to be in person. So we have a fully in person, we have a fully online, and we have a fully blended intake in that one.
Michael, we should just mention that that's for next year, but
yeah,
if you go on the website, the information may be different, but this is what you've presented. So just to clarify, because on the website, they still have the old intakes.
Yeah, so not to go into inside baseball, but it takes a while for the inner workings of BCIT to update our website. So yeah, like Bal said, if you go to the website, it may look slightly different on what intakes is delivering what model and stuff like that, but those will change in the coming weeks. But this slide right here is what's going to be in 2025. So just look at this slide as 2025 and forward. But our website is yet to be, our BCIT website is yet to be updated. Next, it takes a bit for those internal BCIT processes. It's a big machine, it takes a long time to turn the ship around there.
And today they were saying, we'll probably see the changes in a couple of weeks.
There you go, 2 weeks. Okay, cool, perfect. Yep. So early look at this. I already explained the differences here, right here. You can look at this slide here, but this is generally summarizes that. I talked about that already. It is important though that no matter what delivery model you take, like I said before, you all get the same learning outcomes. You all learn the same stuff. The lectures are generally the same. There's no differences really. So it's just a matter of like how you want to have this information delivered to you and how do you want to interact with other students, either virtually, a combination of the two, or in person physically. So everyone has their own sort of preferences in that regard or needs. So it is a full, publicly funded certificate program. So that means you have access to all the usual financial aid solutions. So you have BC government student loans, major bank student line of credits, that kind of stuff, RESP funding, Work BC, Work Safe BC. So we always get a few of those. So Bal is quite familiar with that process. So he's worked with many people in those programs. So we are familiar with those. So if you are in this Work BC, Work Safe BC, make sure you get to your casework or course, whatever your person you're working with there, and get your applications in early. Make sure all your ducks are in a row for that. You can go to these couple websites. You can go to bcit.ca/finaid or studentaidbc.ca. Those have got some good resources for how to fund this program if that's what you need help with on there. So just to summarize it up here, why choose FWD? You do have lots of choices. I encourage you to explore them all and find the program that works best for you. But for us, we have a nice short duration program. You learn a lot in a short amount of time. We always keep the curriculum up to date. We have very experienced faculty who are good at teaching, who have good industry experience and are helpful. And we have, great facilities here at BCIT. And if you take it virtually, we have good software that runs reliably your video conferencing applications. We, we don't have exams. It's all sort of practical based, hands-on based, all sort of project based assignments and projects. And I said that, and then sort of balance. So we do a lot of coding. We also do a little bit of design. You also do a little bit of business stuff, all related into web development. And because it's a BCIT credential, it is respected in industry as a good resource there. And of course, you also get access to all the BCIT campuses and all the student services, regardless of the intake you take. If you take online, you get access to all the career services, all the student services. You can go to campus, don't go to campus if you live. For the online ones, we have students that have taken it from Europe. We have had students that have taken it from Asia, and then we've had people who take it from all over North America. So that's one of the benefits of the online one, is you can kind of almost live everywhere and take the course there virtually if that's what you want to do. Okay, so that's our sort of pitch there. Now we'll have a few moments here to answer any questions you may have. It's a small group today, so we'll see who, we'll try to answer all of them in here, and we'll see what we got. So one person's asking here, currently there's an unstable feeling about the market, job opportunities from your point of view. How are the opportunities as front-end developers once the program is completed? Jonathan, you've had a few words about this. Do you want to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the job market post-pandemic had a big spike, lots of jobs, and then we came out of it. There was not as many jobs, lots of layoffs. So what happened? The reason people have this perception is there were a lot of people who were laid off from big companies, and it's taken a while for them to get rehired and kind of spread back into the workforce. So that has happened. It's not oversaturated with senior developers at the moment, the job market. So it's getting back to normal. I would say if you're starting the program in January, let's say, by the time you finish next year, I suspect, no one can guess for sure, but I suspect it'll be back to normal like it would have been post or pre-pandemic 2019 or so. We have students already getting hired from recent intakes. So yeah, the job market's definitely getting better.
Yeah, that's what I get a sense of too. I think the overall economy is getting better as interest rates come down. Businesses are spending more money, so
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. So if you've been in this industry long enough, you'll notice there's always like a up and downs, and we just went through a down period. So now we're going to hopefully go into an up period. We'll see.
Yeah.
So another student's asking a question, but she's or he or she's still typing. So we'll just.
I'll just add on while we wait for that.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind too is it's partially up to you also when you finish, because there are always job opportunities, even if there are fewer of them. Someone has to take that job, right? So if you're kind of taking advantage of everything that's being given to you and networking opportunities after finish, all those help a lot too.
Here's a question here. I have a marketing degree and I also studied an entry-level website design. I know how to use WordPress and some other platforms, but I'm interested in coding. Is this something you recommend? If you mean something you recommend, like our program, I would say, even though you appear to have some experience, I'm going to guess, and I can't assume, of course, but I'm going to guess maybe you just have just enough to know and you want to know more and you want to have a deeper understanding of web development, WordPress, and development in general. I'm thinking I'm reading that from your question. I'm not 100%, but if that is the case, I would say yes, our program is great for that because you've already got sort of a baseline entry-level understanding of this. So our program is it's obviously doable. We have lots of successful grads, but it can be quite a lot to learn. We learn a lot at the very beginning. You learn a lot of languages, but because you know a lot of those languages already, you'll have an easier time at the beginning of the program. That way you can focus more on the projects you're building and you can build more advanced projects and build out your portfolio a little bit better. So I think you would be a great fit for the program. I'm not just saying that, but I think honestly, we've had students who come from marketing and creative sides and stuff like that. And they always do really, really well, especially since you have prior experience a little bit anyways. There.
Yeah, there's someone in one of the intakes right now that is finishing up who has similar background to you, who has worked with WordPress and some other things and has a marketing background. And yeah, definitely have had lots of students fall into that.
Great. Okay, another person's asking, is there a way eventually to improve specific tech skills throughout courses in BCIT in order to focus, say, React, because I've seen is really in demand? So I guess you're asking if can you take other courses at BCIT in addition to our FWD program? I think, yeah. So definitely, that's one area that a lot of students do because obviously in 6 months, we can't learn everything about everything. So yes, we do learn React, but you might be able to take like in BCIT part-time studies, you can take, further React courses, like Node.js courses. They're even actually adding a lot of AI courses like prompting and AI engineering, that kind of stuff at the part-time studies level. So those could be future skills that you may want to look at, and that's a great way to add to your cap of skills, your sort of the cap of skills that you have available to you. There's a great way to add to it, and definitely a lot of students do that, and you can do that in there. So yeah, we do learn React in the program, but you can always learn more React. So there you go.
This is also where the portfolio comes into play to that, because you get to choose what you work on for your portfolio. So lots of people take the opportunity to practice React skills even further by building their portfolio in React.
Yes, exactly. So here's a question about the differences between programs. So I am the program head of the front-end web developer program, so I'm not 100% familiar with the applied web development program, but I do know that that's probably run through part-time studies, I believe. And so if you do, I've looked at I have briefly scanned the courses that are in applied web development and the courses that are in our program. And there is some similarity there. We do have some differences. I don't think, I know that they don't learn content management systems in the applied web development program, whereas we do. I'm not sure if they have the same amount of UX or development design courses in there that we do. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying these are the differences. I think the main difference between the two is applied web development is part-time studies, and front-end development is we're a full-time day school program. So the part-time studies ones is great if you have a little bit more time, in the sense because you can only take really realistically 2 courses at a time, maybe 3, but because a lot of the courses have prerequisites, you can't take 3 because often you'll need to have prerequisites for the third one. You can't do it, right? So you'll only be able to take 2 courses at a time generally per term. And so it takes you a longer period of time to get that certificate over there. And you can only do, usually they're offered at nighttime and on weekends, and maybe that works better for you. But that's I'd say the delivery model is the biggest difference between the two on there. I'd have to check out the actual thing there, but you can send us an email and I can look into it. And there are also, if you do want to ask about that, you may want to just go to the website and just talk to, I think Joanne's is the person Joanne Atta is the person that you send an email to, but you can go to the applied website or the part-time studies and send an email about that, ask about that program. But you can send us an email too, and I'll maybe look into it a bit more and get the exact differences there. We have someone else is typing a question here, so we'll just wait a little bit on there. But yeah, and
looking at the course list now, I can just answer that.
Oh, cool.
Real quick. There's a lot of overlap. There's a few differences. They cover a couple things that we don't. We cover a couple of things they don't, but it's not hugely different. So it really is what Michael was saying, which is just the delivery method.
So another question here is, once the program is finished, is there is there help to improve our profile to look for a job? If I'm not wrong, you mentioned companies like BCIT, students, right? Yeah. So we don't have, like, once you graduate, actually, I wouldn't say you're not left entirely out in the wind. We don't have official job placement person that you just go to see every week and stuff officially. But however, with that said, throughout the year, we have, while you're a student, and even after you graduate, you have access to the career services at BCIT through the Student Association. So we have, in the computing department, we have a dedicated career counselor who's dedicated to career counseling for computing jobs, which includes web development jobs. And you can see that person one-on-one. They can help you with your resume. They can help you with interview preparation, all that wonderful stuff. And then even after you graduate, you have access to that person. You also have access to all the career events that BCIT offers and whatnot. And then during the program, not only do you have access to those career services, we also do a couple of days on ourselves in the program, in the sort of career development, portfolio development, interview skills, promoting yourself, leveraging LinkedIn to, sort of put your sort of skills out there for the world on there. Do you have anything to add about that, Jonathan, or is that?
Yeah, that's actually a good thing you mentioned that. I forgot to mention that. Part of the portfolio is, preparing your LinkedIn profile, working on your resume, practicing all that stuff. And there's a lot of unofficial stuff that will happen throughout the program, and that's sort of getting advice from instructors and kind of seeing what opportunities out there. Networking opportunities are really big. That it's hard to undersell how important it is to sort of convince people that they should hire you specifically. It's not just your skills. Everyone will leave with the same skills, obviously, going through a program. It's what separates you from other people is making those one-on-one connections, and it's a lot of that, which a lot of people don't like to do, but it's part of getting jobs.
Yeah, and a lot of it's you may want to attend to industry events, like Jonathan works with the WordPress event here locally, so attending those meetups and whatnot, and putting your face out there. And it can be scary at first when you're just junior, don't know anybody, and you're like, do you feel like you're just don't know what you're doing there? But it's good to show up there to show your face. And I think Jonathan said one time, even back in the day, that's employers showed up. I'm looking for a developer, and they hired someone on the spot.
Yeah, that was during the pandemic, even during a virtual meetup. So those meetups are helpful. It's also because you have classmates, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, let's 4 or 5 of us go to this event. It's less daunting that way, and you can meet people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know if okay, so one person's left. Okay, so any other questions there? Okay, well, thanks a lot and appreciate it. So I'll just wrap this up. And yeah, thank you for taking the, what, an hour, just an hour. So about an hour of your time out here to see if this program's the right fit for you. And if it is, great. Maybe we'll see you in an upcoming intake. And if not, all the best to you going forward. Okay, thank you.